Coach, coming into the Rice game, how do you like the makeup of the offensive line now, both health wise and the way they've looked in practice?
They're getting better. Where you're always experimenting with just different guys at different spots and all that. But I think we kind of settled in. Um, I think they've done a good job. Get to probably see Cam Nichols a little bit this week. So we're excited about that. We'll see. But I think that's looking good. Um, but the open week was good. You had a couple little, a couple sore ankles and just a couple nicks and knacks. So you're trying to do two things at once. You're trying to get people healthy and at the same time moving forward and having good practices and having good fundamentals. And I think we're getting there. Yesterday everybody looked pretty good. Okay, but they're going to have their hands full. This gun bunch is pretty good, so got to go play well. But I think we're in pretty good shape there.
Yeah, watching a couple of the Rice games, they seem like they give you a lot of different looks on defense. Sometimes you might have the whole defensive line standing up, and then maybe the next play, they've all got their hands in the dirt.
Yeah, I mean they're very multiple. They do a nice job. If you go back and watch, you know, we've studied them for the last 2 years, and it's really the same defensive system that they had last year, because they had retained Coach Abel, the new head coach, had retained the previous defense coordinator, uh, and he went to Temple. So they actually promoted from within the staff. So it's the same system that they've been running. They didn't give up a lot of points last year, right? And obviously they played really well versus us last year, and I like how they are. They're very disciplined. They do what they're supposed to do. They know who they are. Uh, they have some big guys up front, and they'll create even fronts, odd fronts, but they'll settle those guys in there. They got a 340-pound nose guard that's a good player. Um, and they just kind of hunker down in there and allow those linebackers to run and make tackles, and then they'll give you some different looks. They'll give you some blitzes here and there. Third down, they're extremely multiple on the looks they give you. They do a really nice job. When you look at teams they played, I mean, they only give up 12 points to Louisiana, and Louisiana's got good players now. Houston scored 28 offensive points, but three of those were on like 60-yard touchdowns. Okay, so Houston really struggled to drive the ball, and then obviously Charlotte, they held those guys to 17 points. They've been pretty impressive on defense.
And have you crossed paths with Coach Abel over the years? As I know, a lot of the option coaches get together and compare notes over the years. Have you guys crossed paths doing that?
Not really. I know who he is when he was at Davidson and all that. I don't know that before I came here, I don't know if I was part of the option club or not. I don't, they probably wouldn't let me in. But so we haven't really. I don't really know him.
Thanks, Coach.
Mhm.
Tim Nolan.
We were talking with Coach Newberry, Drew. He was mentioning how that maybe you want to see more pass in the offense, but the game has just dictated a more run-heavy script. How have you seen that play out over the first three games?
Yeah, it's obviously the first game, was a lot to do with just, we were way ahead. UAB, we hit some things. You know, the weather, kind of, and you get in the second half and you're trying to just get through the game there at the end. So I probably was a little too conservative last week. And the thing we've noticed is, and it's week to week, but people are concerned about us throwing it over their head. Okay, so what hopefully you've created is some conflict where the safeties can't be quite as aggressive in the run game. And so if the safeties aren't being as aggressive, then hopefully the run game is churning out some yards. And so we've been able to meet we've had our explosion plays, right? That's the main thing for me is how do we find explosion plays, whether it's run game or throwing game. You go back to the Tulsa game, we did hit some big plays in the passing game. Um, but it wasn't, we didn't have to, it just what the way the game was going and the way they were playing defense, it was more of a, get the ball on the perimeter some, mix it up, mix a pass there every once in a while. So we'll just kind of you have to continue to see how that goes. But what one trend that's kind of developed is, even from about mid-season on last year, is that people are a little less aggressive at safety versus us in general. It's not saying that's like that all the time. But that's a good thing because that allows you, hopefully to have some more things in the run game. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see, if people are going to be aggressive, then you gotta make them pay for that. You gotta be able to hit those throws and our RPO game, all those things. And we've missed a few things too that we need to execute better. So we'll see. We're not going to air raid anybody, but it may be a little more throwing here and there.
How did last year's loss to Rice and them holding you to just 10 points make you better as an offensive coordinator?
It just made me mad, you know. But you have to go look at when you don't play well, right? Why didn't you play well? First of all, as a coach, did we put the kids in good situations? Um, you know, what were the factors, right? And if they didn't execute certain things, did we have them prepared well enough to do that? So you do that after every game. Even when you win, you want to make sure you look at it and go, well, why did we not do these things well? The bottom line was they played better than we did last year, and we didn't execute, and we didn't make plays. And you can say, well, you can throw all the other excuses out there of the whatever with the weather and the delays and all that stuff. But the bottom line is they had to deal with the same thing we did, and we didn't handle it as good as they did, and they outplayed us. Um, that's what you try to figure out is what do we have to do better as coaches when we don't play well to help the guys uh, to execute better. And so anytime you don't score a lot of points or you don't play well, you get beat. That's the case. Whether it was the three games that we lost last year, Tulane, Notre Dame. I mean, you go back and what was it? Turnovers here or lack of execution here or whatever it was. You try to fix those things and even when you win, there's times where you look at the film and go, man, we just didn't play well. We happened to end up on the right side of the scoreboard. The bottom line for us is trying to be the very best we can be, um, and hopefully the results go our way. So hopefully we can have a little better game plan this year, and we can execute a little bit better and make some plays and score some points.
Chance you might get Cody back this week and Cam Nichols might get both of them back. But how reassuring is it for you as an OC knowing that you're putting up these gaudy numbers in offense and you're yet to be at full strength this year?
Well, it just means some guys are stepping up, and sometimes those things are a blessing because, like for instance, last year when Cody missed some of the games early, well, it forced those other two guys, Scully and Jake to get better, right? And then all of a sudden, when you did get Cody back, you had some depth, so sometimes that helps you create depth. You certainly want to have all your guys out there, but injuries are part of it, and you got to have people step up and grow up and um, every rep somebody gets ought to make them better, right? So even in practice, if you're having to hold a guy in practice because he's recovering from something, that means his backup is getting valuable time and valuable reps and valuable experience. So, if what we want to make sure we do, going forward is do a great job recruiting so that when you lose players to graduation, the next guys are ready to step up. When you lose some players to injury here and there, the next guys are ready to step up and you have a good solid healthy two deep or three deep that you feel like you can go win with. That's always a work in progress. We're still, recruiting uh, towards the style of play we are now. Whether it's developing tight ends or developing offensive line or whatever position it is. So all those things are a work in progress, but I'm pleased when a guy like Torin goes in there and starts at center for the first time and goes out there and executes, right? So that's a big deal, you know, that kid's got that kind of toughness, whether it's him, whether it's you know, Theo Elwell had to play a lot of snaps for us the last game, and he did some good things. And there's a lot of areas he can improve on, but the only way you can get better is to go play sometimes. So I'm sure you could say the same thing on the defensive side of the ball too. Just when guys get opportunities, they got to be ready. They got to step up. They got to prepare the right way. Um, and then they got to go. They got to go. They got to go get it done. And I think when you see that happen, it creates depth and creates a lot of confidence.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, we're doing 3 questions each, so we'll go through twice. Gary Lambert.
Hey, Drew, good to talk with you again.
Yes, sir.
So, obviously, every offensive coordinator craves playmakers more than just one or two, right? Um, when you took this job and you're in that intro stage, between watching tape maybe before you got here to see what do I got? What am I inheriting? And then that first spring, how much did Eli and Alex cry out for quite a role uh, in your offensive scheme?
Pretty loud. I mean, and when you take the job and you start talking and start asking questions about those things before I even, taking the job, and I guess I took the job and I was here about 3 days later. But even in that window before I was officially on the staff, I'm already getting information and watching some things, and I'd heard about the 2 kids from Pittsburgh, and you start you start trying to figure out what do we have, because you're trying to jump into recruiting too, right? And even
Right.
though we don't have any quick fixes in the portal here, you're still trying to think how, what do we need to recruit towards? What do we already have on the roster? But those 2 guys were the two names that really popped up even before I walked on campus. And then as people started talking about them, I had watched Navy play. I got to see him play a couple times because whenever Navy was on, I would watch Navy. If they, especially if they were playing on a Thursday night or a Friday night, I'd actually had to watch the Memphis game. Because I think
Mm.
it was a Thursday night game in 23. And I saw 22 and I saw 46 making some plays. So I kind of already had a little bit of an idea just from being a quote unquote kind of fan watching the game. So those guys have not disappointed. They are really good football players. And we need those guys Saturday to make plays. Need them to do it.
Could you, given their obvious continued development, could you recite some of those bullet points that just, make an OC really happy that they're just doing this now? We've incorporated this with them. We've created
Right.
this, like for Alex, start with Alex.
You talking about when I first started learning about them?
And then how that's evolved,
Well,
and
you
how
could
like look
see,
what Alex does now.
yeah.
Look what
I mean,
Eli does now.
yeah. I mean, you know, they've grown, and they're extremely versatile, which in this system, is a big deal to be able to move pieces around and a guy to be able to run between the tackles and get on the perimeter and catch the ball. All 3 of those guys can do all 3 of those things. And they have the knack for playmaking. So as we've done these different things with them, they've just improved. They've improved as route runners. They've improved as pass catchers. They've improved, really Eli's improved more as a running back because he was primarily a receiver coming in here, right? And then I think Alex has improved in those other areas of some route running and hit the way he blocks, and different things. So I think you see we try to be creative about getting him the ball in different ways. Um, and I think Alex could play snipe. He could play snipe. If we needed him to play snipe, he could do it. And to be honest with you, um, Eli could probably play the same position that Alex played. Could play the running back position, right? Eli could go all the way to split in. He can do a lot of different things. So those guys are extremely versatile. And that's a wonderful weapon to have in what we're doing.
So, my last question: you talked earlier about explosion plays.
Hmm.
In a given, now that you've got a body of work in your mind with these two, do you almost expect like one or two of those at least a game out of each?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah,
demand
man.
it.
Yeah, I mean our goal is to have 8 explosion plays in a game, and what we define as a pass of 20 or more or a run of 12 or
Right.
more. And we've made that goal all 3 weeks, and we got to continue to do that. It's a big deal for us. Um, it's week. We want to be able to grind some things out, and that's important. But to be able to, whether it's run game, whether it's passing game, be able to to have some 20, 30, 40-yard plays. If you have 2 explosion plays in a drive, you average pretty close to a touchdown on that drive. Okay. So, um, those are big things, and we have players that are capable of making those type of plays.
Thank you, Coach.
Mhm.
Speaking of that Memphis game Coach was talking about, that was both Eli and Alex's first career starts. Alex actually rushed for 163 yards in that game. That's his career high. Let's see. Let's go to Wags.
So, Drew, obviously, this Rice defense got after you all last year. In your opinion, what went wrong on that day? You only had 260 total yards, 10 points.
I love your questions, Wags. God, you just take me back in time. Yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I need to call a better game. I probably could have got us on the perimeter a little bit more, but I'm pretty hard on myself when when we score. If we score a bunch of points, I look back and think, man, I should have called this, this, and this. So you start analyzing it, and there's some things I could call better, that schematically, and we did not execute like we normally do. And now, Rice had a lot to do with that because I think they're good on defense. Um, but when you look at it, we started off terrible. I think we threw an interception the very first play on offense. Um, and we just didn't get any rhythm going. So hopefully it's easier to call a game in 2nd and 6 than in 2nd and 10. So we got to make sure we're productive on first down. And when the bullet's in the gun, it needs to fire. I mean, when we have opportunities to make plays down the field, we got to make them. We got to block a little better. We got to sustain blocks. Um, it's been a while. There's a lot of water under the bridge. You look at that game and you use that game to help you game plan along with all the other games you're watching on them. But I don't want to harp too much on. I think the way we played that day and the way it went, we would have been bad versus most anybody we played. I think it was more about us needing to game plan better, needing to have better execution. And we had some other opportunities to score. I really think we left 2 touchdowns out there, but we didn't get it done. So hopefully we're a little more mature, have a little better understanding of who we are, and can get out there. And I think our guys they're a lot more confident now, in a way that, like, we got behind 14-0 Saturday or last Saturday, and I think a year ago we'd have really struggled with that, and I think our guys have a maturity about them on offense now that they were able to play through that and not panic. And so I think we're in a different place now offensively. Even though we had a fast start last year offensively, we've grown a lot. We're more mature, and I think I just think we understand who we are. The players understand who they are. They have a better feel for me. I just think we've grown a lot. But the bottom line is still we got to go execute. We got to put the kids in good situations. We got to make plays. Can't turn it over. All the things we talk about. Hopefully we got the turnovers out of the way the first quarter last week. And we can play a good, solid, just complete, consistent game.
So the new defensive coordinator, he's basically kept the same system in place that was previously.
Yeah, it's very similar. Obviously, he's put his own flavor on it, but it's a similar. I don't know if they still call them the same things, but I would imagine he's been there for a few years, working with the previous guy.
He was a linebackers coach, I think, last year.
Yeah. So he was on the staff. Obviously, I think he'd been on the staff for a few years. He'd been a really, I think, successful high school coach there in Texas. Really good football coach. I love the way they play. They do a great job. So I would imagine he's put his own spin on some things, just like, anywhere else where you have, a coordinator leave and they promote from within, you're probably gonna have the same system in general, but I'm sure, there's little bit different flavor just because it's a different guy calling it and different guy, game planning. So but it's very similar.
So usually when a team defends, you know, option or your type of offense well one year, they probably going to come back with a similar game plan. It worked once. Why not try again? Is that what you expect?
Well, I think you always just expect people to be who they are, right? And then you have to adjust. You can't chase ghosts. So, they lined up and played ball, and we knew a little bit about it because they had already played Army, and I'm sure they'll have some wrinkles and some tweaks for this game. But we're going to prepare, based off what we've seen on film. And as I'm sure they are, that's all you can do. And then we'll adjust if we're getting some different things.
Wyatt Kopelman.
Coach, I know that the run game has been as strong this year, if not better than last season. It's contributed mightily to the 10th best time of possession in the country. How do you continue to kind of set the bar higher and identify ways for this run game to grow? Is a lot on the offensive line or even Blake's reads or within the running back room itself?
Well, I think you have to, we can't, we got to be who we are and do our base things well, and then have enough wrinkles off of those things to protect the base things, right? Every run needs a counter, or a play action. You need to be able to be multiple. For us, as being multiple in the formations, running the same schemes, right? So you're not, because we do a lot, uh, but we still want for our offensive line to keep their toolbox as simple as possible. So you try to be yourself and do your base things, and certain defenses schematically are able to defend certain things that you do better than others just because of how they line up. So you got to understand who you are and what your answers are, and what you like versus different things. And I think we have a good feel for that. Um, and but we still got to, what I have to be careful because I love the creativity of offensive football, and I've got to make sure that I don't get ahead of myself, and try to do too much or try to be too cute or whatever. We've got to go be good at our base things and then protect those base things, right? So, and then we've got to like y'all asked before about the passing game, right? I've got to be willing as a play caller to take what the defense gives us and not because I want to throw the football, okay? and but I also got to be patient enough to let that come to us at the right times and when they give us, the right things. So don't get ahead of ourselves. Let's be good at our identity plays. Um, put the wrinkles around them, put the formations around them, and then adjust during the game. And that's kind of what we try to do.
You mentioned how the offensive line has to continue doing what it has and make this a game that the run game can establish opportunity for itself to dominate the line of scrimmage. And this offensive line has allowed just one sack so far this year. What do you expect from this group to keep
Yeah,
up
and
that
that one wasn't
level?
their fault. So yeah, can't they really allowed none.
Right, right. So what do you expect from this group to keep that level of protection consistent as the competition ramps up here?
Well, we just got to keep improving. We've got to be physical, right? And we've got running the football effectively keeps you from getting sacks. Okay, that and everybody needs to understand that. Now, when you're in obvious passing situations that people can pin their ears back and come after you, it's much more difficult for anybody. Any system, any program. People are going to get after your quarterback. Okay, so the ability to run the ball and play action, and then our quarterback understanding and getting the ball out. Okay, that's the reason you don't get sacks. And our quarterback's been pretty good with that, and our offensive line's been pretty good with that within our system. Um, and so that's got to continue because we want to be aggressive on first down, but if we give up a sack now, it's 2nd and 15. That it's a much more difficult game to play now, right? So we've got to be able to execute those things and pick and choose our times, and um, that's going to be hard because we're obviously not going to drop back 70 times and all that. So we've got to pick and choose our times and make sure we're taking care of our offensive line by the way we call a game and the situations we put them in.
We just heard from Brendan Chapman, and something that Brian Newberry definitely attributed to him is his selflessness as a blocker, embracing his role to create opportunities for everybody to thrive within this offense. What has that relationship done for the two of you as you've gotten the chance to work with him for a while?
I love that kid. I mean, I love them all. I got a special place in my heart for him because the way I was able to play was because I wasn't good enough to play. And he's much more talented than me. I'm not trying to compare that, but at the same time, I like scrappy football players. Okay, because that's how I had to play to have a chance to compete, right? And now Chat's got a lot of ability. He can do some things in space, all that, but the fact that he plays as hard as he does at his size and as effective as he is in the physical aspect of the game is pure want to. Okay, it's pure want to. It's just pure toughness and competitiveness. And like I said, he's really good with the ball in his hands in space, but he shouldn't be as good a blocker as he is. Okay, and he just is because he wants to be. I identify with that, and I appreciate that type of effort and that type of just competitive spirit.
Thank you, Drew.
Got about 3 minutes left. I'm gonna go back to Wags, make sure he has everything. Wags.
Well, I wanted to ask you a couple more questions about the jet sweep. I'm going to kind of write about that a little bit. When did you add that to your offense? I covered a lot of wing T teams in Anne Arundel County, and they never had a jet sweep as part of the offense.
Yep. Yeah, so my dad was running that back in 19. He probably started doing it. It was after I graduated. We didn't run the jet sweep when I was playing. I'm old. I finished playing in, oh gosh, the fall of 92. And but I think in the late 90s was when just that pure jet sweep where he's pulling somebody in front of it or a complete reach to get on the edge is when he started doing that. It kind of took the place in some ways of the buck sweep. And so it got on the edge faster and gave you a chance to kind of just outflank the defense. And so when we went to Reinhardt and started football there, that was kind of where we began. That play was what everything else was built off of because you can have the illusion of jet sweep on a lot of things, right? Your bellies and your counters and some of your play action, your traps and different things on the interior. So we kind of built the offense through the jet sweep. And so as you watch us especially at, even at Lenore Ryan, a lot of jet sweep, a lot of jet sweep. So here we probably don't run it quite as much as we did in those days, but obviously it's still a big part of what we do. And you want to call it when you feel like they're giving you a chance to get on the edge and having good jet sweep runners obviously helps, and I think we have some. But you can take it away defensively. You can take the jet sweep away, but hopefully that means you're giving up something else, right? So a lot of people run the jet sweep. Most folks these days are running jet sweep off some kind of what we call a sucker play where the offensive line goes one way and the jet sweep comes out the back door of that. For us, for the most part, jet sweep has been, hey, we're going to pull and block in front of that guy. And then the other way we get to a type of jet sweep is some of our power reads as well in the gun. That's the other way. Eli scored last Saturday on a power read. So you basically have two plays in one. You have a jet sweep on the perimeter, and you have a power play on the inside, and the quarterback makes the decision on who's going to get the ball based on what the defense does.
But
So
only out of shotgun. Obviously, you can't do that out of under center.
correct. Under center, if it's jet sweep, it's just there's no read to it.
Right.
That's correct.
So, Mike James of the Navy Football Radio Network and I were talking about this on my other podcast, and he said that it's a perfect play now that the new blocking rules on the perimeter have been changed, and you can't cut. It's easier to block because of you got receivers going outside in. Do you agree with that assessment?
Jet sweep was an even better play when you could cut. but it gets on the edge a little faster, so those guys don't have to hold, sometimes in option football it doesn't get out quite as fast. So those guys that are art blocking out there, back when they used to cut, that was a big advantage, right? Now you have to hold those and sustain those blocks. Um, it's more difficult, and the jet sweep sometimes gets on the edge a little quicker, so they don't have to hold those blocks as long. So yeah, I would say it's probably easier on the perimeter to block for the jet sweep when you get the right look. Um, but it was even better when you could cut. It was even better.
And lastly, I mean, it's isn't I believe there's a nice little pass play off of jet sweep where you isn't that what Cody Howard gained 65 yards on
I
against?
have no idea what you're talking about, Wags. No clue. No idea.
All right,
Um,
that'll wrap it up for the day. Appreciate it, everybody.
Thank
I'll
you.
have a good one.